The stars were quiet that night. Not the usual quiet that hung over empty space, but a heavy silence that pressed against the hull of every ship in the sector. The Kellar refuge convoy drifted slowly, shields flickering, engines struggling. Each ship carried lives. Hundreds, maybe thousands. But the weight of fear made them seem smaller than they were. Among them, in the largest vessel, moved Malira, the last surviving matriarch of her people. Her eyes, sharp and bright even in dim light, scanned the command deck as she watched her children sleep in secure chambers below. They were not her own, yet every heartbeat of theirs felt as if it were hers. Without them, the Kellar would vanish from the stars forever. She had seen enough death, enough silence, enough despair, and now, the galaxy's most feared predators, pirates, bounty hunters, and rival empires, closed in around them. Their censors had no mercy. No treaty or law could protect her people. Malira had spent decades in diplomacy, negotiation, and cunning. It had all failed. And now, she had one choice left. She sent a call on every open channel, though she already knew no ally would respond in time. Her voice was calm, measured. Every word weighted with urgency. The transmission went to every starship within range. I offer everything. Protection for one night, and all is yours. It was not a plea. It was not begging. It was a declaration. The Kellar did not have wealth in the conventional sense. Not anymore. But what she could offer was more valuable. Access to uncharted routes, knowledge of hidden systems, and loyalty, eternal loyalty of a species desperate to survive. If any human captain understood value, she hoped he would hear her. The response came slower than she expected. Then, in the black, a light blinked. A single, small ship. Battered but moving fast. The freighter's markings were human. Its shape was rough, practical, nothing like the sleek elegance the Kellar often relied on in diplomacy. Its captain, she soon learned, was Jonah Hale, a man whose reputation for stubbornness and luck spread quietly across trading lanes. When he docked with the convoy, Hale did not rush. His crew did not swarm her vessel with offers of help. They waited. Hale himself stepped aboard Malira's command deck, eyes steady, hand resting casually on the edge of the console. He was not impressed. He was not afraid. And that was the first thing she noticed. Malira studied him in silence. His presence was ordinary in appearance, but there was a certainty in him that seemed to bend the stars slightly. He listened as she laid out the situation. The attackers, the dwindling shields, the exhausted crew, the sleeping children who carried the entire hope of a species. Then she listed what she could give. Data archives of immense value, trade access, political alliances, even her own personal submission as matriarch, if required. All for one night of safety. Jonah Hale listened without interrupting. His eyes never left hers. The air was thick with expectation, as if the galaxy itself held its breath. Outside, the convoy drifted closer to danger, moving slower than it should have, each second heavier than the last. Finally, he spoke. Not a demand, not a negotiation, not a promise. Just a question: how many ships are hunting you? Malira almost blinked in surprise. She had expected greed, fear, hesitation. Not this calm pragmatism. She told him the numbers, the fleet sizes, the weapons they carried. Hale's expression did not falter. Instead, a hard edge appeared. Not fear, not panic, but a kind of quiet determination. When she finished, he stood straight and looked at the stars beyond the viewport.
We can hold them.
She was taken aback.
Hold them? One battered freighter, barely armed, against dozens of deadly ships?
The math made no sense. The galaxy made no sense. And yet, something in his certainty made her feel, dare she hope it, relief. Hale moved through her command deck, not touching anything, not needing to. His crew followed his lead, preparing their own vessel, checking weapons, reinforcing shields, scanning the surrounding space.
It was strange, she realized.
Humans did not always offer grandiose promises. They did not always bargain. Sometimes they simply acted. The first skirmish came just before the sector's dark turn. A Kalar scouting vessel reported a fast-moving pirate frigate closing in. Maelira felt a flicker of panic. Hale ordered his ship into formation, weaving through the convoy with impossible precision. His crew, a mix of human civilians, traders, miners, retired soldiers, moved with discipline she had not expected. They were ordinary in appearance, yet extraordinary in execution. The pirate ship opened fire. Lasers tore the space between vessels, but the human freighter held steady, intercepting the first salvo, shielding the convoy. Maelira's eyes widened. She had prepared for negotiations, for surrender, for pleading. Not for this. The humans fought with patience, with cunning, with a willingness to endure rather than dominate. Hours passed like this, and each wave of attackers was met with the same calm resistance. The pirates had expected a quick victory, a simple plunder, and a payment of tribute. Instead, they found themselves blocked at every turn, their assaults repelled by what seemed like ordinary humans refusing to give ground. Maelira realized then that Hale had not bargained for anything, not her wealth, not her allegiance. He had acted out of principle, or perhaps something else she could not name. The thought was both humbling and frightening. If humans could hold one convoy against impossible odds, what else were they capable of? Through the night, Hale's voice was steady in her ear, guiding maneuvers, encouraging his crew, keeping panic at bay. Maelira, for the first time in weeks, allowed herself a moment of relief. The children slept. The convoy survived. For now. And all it had taken was the quiet certainty of a human who refused to see surrender as an option. By the time the sector's twin suns began to rise on distant horizons, the attackers had retreated, confused and frustrated. Maelira watched the last enemy vessel disappear into the void, and then she turned to Hale. Her mind raced with gratitude, awe, and a little disbelief. He had not asked for her wealth. He had not demanded loyalty. He had given only what he could: courage, ingenuity, and the refusal to yield. "Why?" she asked, finally breaking the silence. Hale looked at her, eyes calm and unshaken, as though the question was unnecessary. "Because someone has to."
It was such a simple answer, and yet it carried weight heavier than any treasure she could offer.
Maelira understood then why humans were spoken of in whispers and rumors across the stars. They were not always predictable. They did not always take what was offered. And when they acted out of their own sense of justice, the universe bent in ways no one expected. She did not yet know what tomorrow would bring. More pirates might come. Rival empires might learn of her people's location. Yet tonight, for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Maelira allowed herself to believe the Kalar would survive another night. And the galaxy, perhaps, had begun to learn something new about humanity. The stars outside her viewport were quiet once more, but this time it felt different, not heavy, not threatening, but full of possibilities. And for the first time in years, Maelira allowed herself to hope that one night of courage could be enough to change the fate of a species. The convoy moved slowly through the dark expanse, the humans still surrounding the Kalar ships like a wall of stubborn light. Maelira could not take her eyes off Jonah Hale. Every command he gave, every movement he made was precise and calm, as if he already knew how the night would end. Yet she could see the tension in his crew, the fatigue creeping into their faces. They were ordinary people, not trained soldiers, and yet they had done what no fleet of professional warriors could. The pirates had retreated for now. But Maelira knew it was only temporary. Information traveled fast in the sector. Word of the human freighter protecting the last Kalar heirs would reach mercenaries, warlords, and opportunists. Soon, the attacks would come again, and next time, they might not be so easy to repel. She approached Hale as he stood on the deck, staring out at the stars. "Why do you do this?" she asked softly.
"Why protect us? My people cannot repay you, cannot reward you as you deserve."
"Why risk everything for one night?" Hale turned to her, expression calm but intense. "Because someone has to. Because if we do not, who will?" Maelira looked at him for a long moment. Humans were strange creatures. They did not always think of power, of wealth, of advantage. Sometimes they acted on principle. It was a concept alien to most of the galaxy. Power, fear, and cunning decided the fates of worlds. But humans could act differently, and sometimes that difference was enough to turn the tide. The first rays of a distant sun cut across the void, painting the ships in gold and silver. Maelira felt a rare sense of peace, though it was short-lived. Her communications officer beeped urgently. New signals were approaching from the far edge of the sector. Larger ships, warships, heavily armed. The pirates had called reinforcements. The numbers were growing. Hale did not hesitate. "Prepare for another round," he said. His voice was calm, but Maelira saw a flicker of concern. Even he knew the odds were worse this time. For hours, the convoy moved carefully, humans at the front, sides, and rear, scanning, maneuvering, adjusting shields. Maelira could only watch and learn. She had led fleets, commanded diplomats, and negotiated treaties, yet she had never seen courage like this. Not the reckless courage of youth, not the trained courage of soldiers, but the steady, quiet courage of people who refused to give in to fear. The first wave of the reinforcements arrived near the dark edge of the sector. Sensors picked up dozens of ships, larger than before, carrying heavier weapons. Maelira's stomach tightened. She had expected to negotiate, to beg, maybe even to sacrifice herself to save her children. She had not expected humans to meet fire with fire, intelligence with intelligence, courage with courage. Hale gave orders without raising his voice. Every move was precise. Shields were shifted, engines adjusted, decoys deployed. The human crew worked like a single organism, every person knowing exactly what to do, even under extreme stress. Maelira could not stop herself from being impressed. They were extraordinary, but they were also ordinary. Anyone could have walked past them in a busy port and never noticed their strength. The attackers came closer, sensing the convoy's vulnerability. A massive Kilar transport ship filled with children was exposed. Maelira's heart raced. She wanted to step forward, to command, to act. But Hale stopped her with a gentle gesture. "Trust them," he said. She did. She had no choice but to. The battle began. Lasers cut through the darkness, shields flaring, engines screaming. The human freighter moved gracefully through the chaos, intercepting attacks, blocking projectiles, protecting the convoy. Maelira's people had never seen such precision. The humans did not attack to kill. They moved to protect. Each maneuver, each shield adjustment, was calculated to give maximum safety to the Kalar ships. Hours passed. Maelira could feel the fatigue in her own body as if she had been fighting herself. She had expected fear, chaos, desperation. But instead, she found order, discipline, and an unwavering commitment to something higher than survival. Humans did not ask for rewards, did not seek tribute. They acted because it was the right thing to do. By mid-cycle, the attackers began to falter. They were numerous, yes, but disorganized. They had expected the Kalar to panic, to surrender, to pay the price demanded. Instead, they faced humans who refused to yield, who held the line no matter the odds. Slowly, the attackers' coordination broke. Ships collided, retreated, or abandoned the chase entirely. Maelira watched the retreat with awe. She had never imagined it possible. One human freighter, a handful of ordinary people, had defended her entire species from annihilation, and they had done it without taking a single thing from her. No wealth, no allegiance, no favor. Only action, only courage, only a refusal to surrender. When the last of the attackers disappeared beyond the edge of sensors, Hale finally allowed himself a small sigh. His crew cheered quietly, exhausted but alive. Meilira approached him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You risked everything," she said softly. All of this. For us? For me? Hale shook his head. Not for you. Not even for your people. For the principle. For the idea that someone should do what's right when no one else will. That's all. Meilira did not understand fully, yet she felt it. The galaxy had taught her one lesson. Power was not always about wealth, or technology, or armies. Sometimes it was about courage, about principle, about the choice to stand when everyone else expected surrender. The Kalar children slept safely in their chambers, unaware of the danger they had just survived. Meilira bent down, touching one small hand gently. She whispered a quiet prayer, not of desperation, but of gratitude, not just to the stars, but to the humans who had proven that the impossible could be possible. Hale moved beside her, looking out the viewport at the empty stars. "They'll come back," he said quietly. "More ships, bigger fleets, bigger... The galaxy doesn't like humans interfering without taking something in return."
Meilira nodded.
She understood the truth in his words. Yet, for the first time in her life, she did not feel despair. There was hope. A strange, simple hope, born from the courage of a human who refused to bend to fear or expectation. She realized that the galaxy had misunderstood humans for centuries. They were not predictable. They were not weak. They were dangerous. Not because they took what was offered, but because sometimes they refused. And when they refused, the universe had no choice but to listen. The rest of the night passed slowly, with the convoy moving carefully toward safe space. Hale and his crew remained vigilant, scanning, guarding, adjusting shields, and preparing for any possible attack. Meilira spent the time watching them, learning from them, and slowly understanding the strength humans carried, not in weapons or fleets, but in the courage to stand firm against impossible odds. By the time the distant sun rose fully, bathing the convoy in soft light, Meilira allowed herself a moment to breathe. They were safe. For now, the human freighter had held them, protected them, and given them a chance to survive. And in that moment she understood something new. The galaxy had seen humans as newcomers, as weak, as unpredictable. But she had seen the truth. Humans were dangerous because they could act when no one else would. They could stand when others fell. And in that courage, they held power greater than any fleet, greater than any weapon, greater than any empire. Meilira looked at Hale, standing quietly beside her, calm, unassuming, yet extraordinary. "You have changed everything," she said softly. Hale shook his head.
"No, you and your people changed everything by surviving."
"We only gave you a chance." She smiled faintly. Perhaps that was the human way. Give hope, give courage, give action, and ask nothing in return. The Kalar would live another day, perhaps more, and the stars themselves had begun to learn a lesson about humanity they would not forget. For Meilira, that one night of courage had become more than protection. It had become a promise that humans could be allies, protectors, and forces of change in ways no one had ever imagined. And for the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of something she had almost forgotten: hope. The convoy moved slowly towards safe space, but the sense of relief that had begun to bloom in Meilira's chest was fragile. Hale had been right. Others would come. The galaxy had a long memory, and the story of a human freighter protecting the last Kalar heirs would travel faster than any fleet. Meilira knew that even now, unseen observers were weighing options, calculating profit, preparing fleets. She had expected after the first attack that the humans might demand payment, allegiance, or some kind of claim in return. That was what the galaxy would expect. But Jonah Hale had asked nothing, taken nothing, and risked everything. She could not understand why, not fully. Humans were strange creatures, stubborn, unpredictable, and sometimes courageous in ways that defied reason. But the longer she watched Hale, the more she understood that his actions were not about wealth or gain. They were about choice. Choice. By mid-cycle, a new signal appeared on the sensors. Not just one ship, but a fleet. A dozen warships, sleek, heavily armed. Their transponders broadcasting the logo of a nearby empire known for conquest and greed. Meilira's stomach twisted. The humans had held before. But now, the challenge was larger, more dangerous. Entire fleets were not usually fended off by one freighter, no matter how clever the crew. Hale did not hesitate. He moved through the command deck, giving calm orders, his crew following instinctively. Shields were adjusted, engines repositioned, decoys activated. Each move was precise, measured, and daring. Meilira watched in awe. This was not simple bravery. It was mastery, honed through experience and an unwavering sense of duty. She stepped closer to Hale.
This fleet? Dress in day.
They will not leave without a fight. Are you certain you can hold them? Hale's eyes were steady, unflinching.
I don't know, but I do know one thing. If we don't try, they win without effort.
That's not an option. It was a simple statement, but it carried a weight that the galaxy had forgotten. Humans, she realized, did not always measure the universe by profit or advantage. Sometimes, they measured it by what was right. The fleet came closer. Its weapons glimmered faintly in the void. Meilira could see the confidence in their formation. They expected the Kalar to panic, to beg, to surrender. But Hale's crew did not waver. They moved with uncanny precision, shielding the convoy, intercepting attacks, and holding a wall no one had thought possible. Hours passed. Shields flared. Lasers tore through space. Explosions erupted in the distance, but the convoy remained intact. Meilira's heart pounded with every maneuver, but she did not panic. For the first time, she felt the true meaning of courage. Not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the first warship broke formation, then another. The human freighter had done something no one expected. It had forced the fleet to reconsider. They had underestimated humans, underestimated their courage, underestimated their refusal to surrender. Meilira realized then what she had not understood before. Humans could be dangerous, not because of their strength or weapons, but because of their choices. The universe had taught the Kalar that survival required cunning, power, and negotiation. But Hale had shown them something else. Survival also required principle, courage, and the refusal to bow to fear. The fleet began to retreat, slowly, carefully, as if testing the humans' resolve. Hale did not chase. He held the line, steady, unyielding. Meilira's chest swelled with admiration. She had expected negotiation, bribes, or pleas. Instead, the humans had acted on something far greater. The choice to protect life, simply because it was right. When the last of the fleet disappeared beyond sensor range, Hale allowed himself a small sigh. His crew cheered quietly, exhausted but triumphant. Meilira approached him, her mind racing. "You risked everything," she said softly. "All of this? For us? For me? For nothing?"
Hale shook his head. Not for nothing.
For the principle, for the idea that sometimes you do what's right, even if it costs you everything. That's all. She felt a strange mix of gratitude and disbelief. The galaxy had long assumed humans acted only for gain, only for advantage. But here they were, ordinary people doing extraordinary things, without reward or claim. Maelira's mind could not reconcile it. The convoy continued its slow journey, but the tension had not fully lifted. Maelira knew the galaxy would not forget this night. Observers, spies, and intelligence networks would report the story. A human freighter protecting an entire species, refusing reward, refusing tribute, refusing to surrender. It was a shock to every expectation, a challenge to every empire's assumptions about humans. Hale remained calm, moving among his crew, checking systems, adjusting shields, giving encouragement. Maelira noticed something remarkable. The humans did not seek glory. They did not boast. They acted quietly, efficiently, courageously. And the universe, she realized, had not prepared for that. By the time the distant sun rose fully across the horizon of a nearby star, Maelira allowed herself to breathe. The convoy had survived. Unscathed, the children remained safe. Unaware of the danger they had faced, the galaxy had witnessed something unusual, something it would not easily forget. Humans standing firm when all others expected surrender. Maelira turned to Hale.
You could have asked for anything. Wealth, power, allegiance.
Anything? Why didn't you? Hale's eyes were steady.
Because some things are not for sale. Some things are worth more than anything in the galaxy.
Life, courage, principle. That's why we do it.
That's why humans sometimes surprise everyone. She nodded slowly.
The galaxy had misunderstood humans for centuries. They were not weak, not predictable, not easily controlled. They were dangerous because they could make choices that defied expectation, that refused to bend to fear or pressure. And in those choices, they carried power greater than fleets or weapons. For Maelira, the night had become a lesson in courage, in principle, and in the unexpected strength of humanity. The Kaler would live another day, perhaps more, and the galaxy itself had learned, in small but undeniable ways, that humans were not to be underestimated. She watched the freighter, still moving among the convoy, still protecting, still calm. Jonah Hale, ordinary yet extraordinary, had changed the course of her species' survival, not with force, not with cunning, but with choice. And for the first time in years, she felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. The stars outside were no longer heavy. They shimmered with quiet possibilities, reflecting the courage and steadfastness of a single human freighter and the lives it had saved. Maelira knew the universe would not forget this night, and she understood, finally, what it meant to be human, not in form, but in action, to act when no one else will, to stand when all expect you to fall, to choose courage over fear. That night, the galaxy had learned something it would not soon forget. Humans were dangerous because they sometimes refused to take what was offered, and in that refusal, they changed everything.